Okay, so in this video, let's look at creating new posts. It's going to be fairly simple, and the first thing we're going to do is modify the new blog code. So I'm going to paste that in here, and I do remember saying that copying and pasting code is oftentimes a sign that something has gone wrong elsewhere, the fact that you have to do that. And we could probably simplify the creation process in terms of code, but we're not going to worry about that in this section, and we're going to worry about that later on in the course as we progress further. So right now we're only worried about getting things to work, and once they do, we can improve them. So let's rename some things, posts new, and then instead of new blog template, it's going to be new post template. Instead of description, it's going to be content. And the user is still going to be the email. This is going to change to post. And the parameters are blog ID, title, content, author, and created date. So blog ID, title, content, author. And the date is going to be today's date. So author is user.email. And we don't have a blog ID. So what we're going to do is send the blog ID over here. Okay, so in order to create the new post, we are going to need the blog ID so we can access the page, which means that this link will only be accessible from somewhere where we have access to that blog ID. So in order to be able to access this link here, the user is going to need a button or a link to press to get to this new post page. And that link or button is going to have to be in the blog page. So if we go to user blogs, and in fact, if we go to posts.html instead, you'll see that here we are displaying the blog's posts. So what I'm going to do is also, at the very bottom, create, or in fact here below the title, create a new link that will allow users to write new posts. Button, class, btn primary. And this button is going to have a text like new post. And inside it, we're going to have an anchor, as we know, which is going to be /posts/new/blog ID. So let me explain really what happened here, what we've done and why we've done it that way. So in the blog page, we're going to display the title, and under it, we're going to display a button, with class button primary, which is the blue one. That button is going to have an anchor that is going to reference the post's new/blog ID page, and then that's going to have the new post text inside it. So when we press the button, we will go to this link here, which is the new post for this specific blog. But of course, this template does not have access to blog_ID, so we're going to have to change that and ensure that posts.html does have the blog ID. Like so. Okay, so now that template is actually going to redirect us to the appropriate place when we press the button. Now, we need to make sure that things are working here in the new post. The first thing to do, of course, will be to change the method name to create new post, and then to have this blog ID parameter here coming from the URL, and now we can use it to create a new post. Rename new blog to new post. And then the make response will actually not be user blogs. We're not going to redirect the user back to his blogs, but instead we're going to redirect them to the blog posts. Okay, so a few changes here. Nothing too massive. And let's see what happens when we actually access the page here. So the first thing actually to remember is that the new post template has to be created, and also it will need access to the blog ID. Why will it need access to the blog ID? Because in order to access the appropriate page and put the post in the correct blog, it's going to need to send us to this link here that has a blog ID in it. Okay, let's create the template, and that way everything will actually be clearer. So new post.html, copy everything from new blog, and now we're going to rename some things. Instead of new blog, it's going to be new post. Instead of blog new, it's going to be posts new. And title will stay the same. Description will change to content. And that's it. Instead of create blog, we'll change that to publish. And of course, instead of posts new as the action, it's going to be posts new blog ID. So that is going to direct us to the appropriate page as per this route here. Notice that that blog ID is then going to allow us to link this post to the appropriate blog in which it belongs. Okay, so if we press play and then we go over here into our blogs, we've got the blogs. We're going to go into the first one. We've got the new post here. It doesn't look very good, and that's because the color of the button is actually the same color as the link text. So a quick fix for that will actually be to put the anchor outside of the button, and that way we can see it. And now when we press on that, it takes us to the correct place. This is not a very good editor, of course. And we can change that, and we press publish, and here we are back over at the correct place. So new post, another post, and there we go. Okay, so this is how we would create new posts. And the last thing to do is, of course, change this content. So this is right now a text field, which is only one line high. We want to change that over to a text area. And this text area will allow us to essentially have more lines. So now that's a bit longer. It can be resized. And there is a way to change the number of rows and the number of columns in this text area. But I've actually can't really remember off the top of my head how to do that. So that is a challenge for you guys. How would you ensure that this text area is initialized with being taller, essentially, having a larger number of rows? So you can find that out. It will be quite simple to do, but it's not essential to make this work. So what we've got now is actually a working thing. We are now able to create our blogs and create our posts, register, log in, and do all sorts of things. So there are a few more things that we could add, such as the ability to search for other users, and by email, for example, and look at their blogs. We could add something like user profiles and have like names and surnames and biographies and things like that. There's a lot of things we could do, and indeed I encourage you to attempt to do that, because I think you now have the skills to develop this further into something that actually interests you, other than simply microblogs that don't have a lot to say. You can actually change this into something more interesting. But do play with it a bit, and then when you're ready to continue, then do move on into the next section. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next one.